Please welcome to the stage Javier Palomarez, President and CEO of the U.S. Hispanic Business Council. Javier, thank you.
Hey, Steve. How are you, buddy? Good to see you.
Good to see you. So we're back on the record, and we're on with C-SPAN, and you know, you and I have known each other a lot, Tiny, talking about the economy, and you know, you wrestle this. You kind of represent Hispanic businesses, but really beyond that. I mean, when you're so big, you're also really talking about the U.S. economy. And I want to, something I didn't know about you last night is you're also a farmer. You have like an insane big farm.
Well,
that makes you no money.
By Texas standards, that is not a big farm.
3,500 acres is like.
But you know, to your point, the United States Hispanic Business Council, we represent about 4.5 million businesses throughout the country. And while we're very proud to advocate on behalf of men and women who happen to be of Hispanic descent, at the end of the day, we never forget, you know, every job we create, every product we manufacture, every tax bill we pay goes to benefit the American economy. And the only thing we're prouder of than being Hispanic is being American. So we see ourselves as American small business. And already we've had a number of organizations like, I believe, Fox Network and Newsweek and others refer to us as the leading advocate for American small business. And, you know, tip of the hat to you. You've recognized that about my community and our organization for years and have been a friend and has helped us kind of mainstream the story of our entrepreneurial community and what it means to this nation as we move forward.
So what's going well for you in the business front right now? I mean, we sort of talking about this feeling like a squishy time where a lot is changing and it's, you know, an opportunity particularly for entrepreneurs. But I'm, you know, interested in, you know, how you see that and you know, what are some of the red flags you see?
You know, there's puts and takes. You look at the pendulum swing. You know, not that long ago, we had an administration that was very draconian in its view toward the traditional energy space. You know, it was a very combative environment and relationship that existed between traditional energy companies and that sector and the administration, and they were absolutely in love with the clean energy space, right, wrong, or different. Pendulum swing to where we are now, it's the complete opposite. This administration, I think, has killed 318 clean energy projects throughout the nation, but is very much enamored with the traditional energy space. We play in both, and so there's puts and takes. What's concerning to me is the pendulum swings, is the inability to plan, to invest, you know, to continue to grow the business in a responsible fashion. It's hard to do that when you don't know what the midterms are going to bring, what the next presidential election is going to bring, et cetera.
What do you, I mean, I was just asking Pierre Yard about, you know, the Genius Act, you know, new fiscal and, you know, financial tools that are out there. You know, the Market Clarity Act, the market structure bill that, you know, is being discussed. So how do you see some of these new innovations in the financial space?
It is a boon to the American small business community when we see, you know, the advent of things like the Genius Act. One thing is clear. One thing's clear to us. We either lead the way, we either take the lead and continue to lead, and create the structures that are necessary to drive this potential technology in the direction that it needs to go on a global stage, or the Chinese or someone else will take the lead for us, gladly. What I find very interesting, and we spend a lot of time, I literally just left a senator's office. We spend a lot of time working with the people and the policies that meet in the middle. You know, you mentioned the Genius Act. As you know, I did a Q&A with Senator Bernie Moreno, Republican from Ohio, and Senator Ruben Gallego, Democrat from Arizona. Now, these two guys could not be more opposite. But when it came to the Genius Act and the need and the real comprehension that this can be an amazing asset for our nation, they came together, they brought their peers to the table, and we, in very quick order, ended up with the Genius Act, which allows us to create the construct that drives this technology forward and keeps us in the game.
You know, you were telling us in a discussion I had with you recently. What's really interesting there's the banked world, and then, you know, that can be slow, can be costly. There can be transaction costs. Then there's the unbanked world that has some new opportunities that didn't have before. Right. Can you help us understand? Because I think one of the things that really struck me a few years ago, and I'm not knocking the bank, but I mean, it was just the reality of what was true. You know, at Bank of America, I like B of A, but at that time, many years ago, the smallest business loan that they were interested in at that level was $5 million.
Yeah.
I'm like going, geez, that's a There's a lot of small businesses smaller than the $5 million business area. And then you found some innovations that would kind of move into that area. And it seems to me that things like, digital assets and whatnot have changed the financing and payment
Absolutely.
gig. Is that something that your Hispanic Business Council crowd is savvy about?
Absolutely. More so than I gave it credit. Small businesses are very much enamored with this notion of this third rail, if you will. The traditional banks, imagine you're a small business owner. Imagine you're a woman that's got a small business in a community like Los Angeles. And, there may be 3 or 4 avenues for financing. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, the usual suspects. They view the world from pretty much a pipe, if you will. And anything outside of that kind of risk factors, they're just not going to take a risk. But when you get into a world like the one we're entering now, with digital assets and people from all over the globe that could look at you and say, yeah, I'm willing to put a few dollars into that. All of a sudden, your ability to finance that piece of equipment or that new lease or hiring these 4 or 5 people to drive your company to the next level, it's just exploded. Now you have an opportunity on a global scale to attract the financing that heretofore was not even available to you. So, yeah, our people are getting caught up as quickly as they can. They're very enthused about what they see because, again, it will completely change, access to finance, which if you look at a minority or especially a woman-owned business, that's the #1 challenge.
What's happening in your community with regards to what we're seeing on the immigration front and the de-immigration front and the ICE front and whatnot? Is it rippling through the Hispanic community?
Absolutely.
Is an area of vulnerability, concern? Is everybody walking around with passports and IDs?
Well, there's some of that. Look, the real
have
fear.
Your passport?
The real fear is the uncertainty. Okay. It's the uncertainty. And again, look at the pendulum swing. We had practically an open door policy under Joe Biden. I'm a Democrat. I voted for Joe. I love him.
I never knew you were a Democrat.
Most of my friends accuse me of not being one, all the way to where we are now. I mean, we're talking mass deportations. And, if you look at where small businesses are, agriculture, manufacturing, hospitality, construction, and tech. Where are the immigrant communities employed? 83% of the workforce in agriculture is of an immigrant background. 65% in construction, 50% in manufacturing, and it's something like 25, 28% in tech. If you are scaring off those resources, then where is that small business going to find the people they need? It is the #1 challenge right now for all small businesses in this nation is finding the people and the resources they need to continue to grow the business. Never mind tariffs, we're dealing with that. If you're a small business, if you're Walmart or you're Costco, you can negotiate with a manufacturer. And because you buy in such huge volumes, you got a lot of power in that negotiation. You've also got an inventory that's been built up. But if you're a small business owner, and you don't have even the access to the man, you get what you get. And so I literally was on the phone Sunday night with the guy down the street that owns a bicycle shop. He's having to wait 1.5 years for bicycle parts that he would like to have now for the holiday season that he just can't. And there's no way he can do nothing about it. Because he's not a Costco, he's not a Walmart. He can't negotiate with a manufacturer and demand that because of the volume that I buy, you're going to give me what I need and you're going to give it to me at a price that I'm comfortable with. Wow. And we're dealing with all of that real time in the small business community.
Are you weighing in on the future of USMCA?
We've been asked, I have to kind of stay within my lane.
Why does everybody have to stay within that? What lane?
Pierre just left this very spot. I have no business here, Steve. I'm a little Texas boy that runs a small business association. But it is shocking the number of particularly Mexican conglomerates that are calling and asking us to come down and spend time with them and give them advice and counsel. I'm sure that we will at some juncture. There is no way we can continue. And I have to say, the Trump administration did an admirable job, I think, with some of the tariff negotiations. If you look at what they did with the European Union. I mean, if you're in the automobile manufacturing space or manufacturing in general, this was a fantastic piece of legislation because it leveled the playing field and it allowed us now access to 27 nations that heretofore we couldn't even play, because right off the bat, there's a 15% increase in the price of anything you sell. To have that literally reversed was really a boon for the small manufacturers throughout this country. Love what's happening there. I'm very hopeful that there's a lot more care given to the relationship between Canada and the US and Mexico and the US, because you're talking Mexico's our #1 trade partner, Canada's our #2. And as we move and wean ourselves from China, it makes a lot of sense to me that these things are going to end up, these manufacturing locations, ideally in the US, but if not, it's going to be in Canada or Mexico. And so there's an interdependence that exists. We cannot, it's got to be a symbiotic relationship and mutually collaborative and respectful, because the economy depends on it. And we have to have a negotiation that recognizes, first and foremost, we're talking to our #1 and #2 trade partner. Never mind the national security implications of the guys that are literally just north and just south of us. That's a whole different conversation. But when you look at it from an economic standpoint, we must have a respectful dialogue and a negotiation where all parties win.
You know, one of the concerns I mentioned of the Trump administration is there's not enough uptake and practical use and the spread of AI at the level they think is necessary right now to compete with China, et cetera. I may be framing that a little bit wrong, but you know, they want to see much more uptake. Where is AI on the dashboard of most of your members?
AI is a real thing. You know, if you look at a small
generative AI, agentic AI, I mean, like
all of
the
the
above. Swimming in it?
Not yet, but if you look at the potential, you know, imagine, you know, your accounting, your prospecting, your marketing, your taxes, keeping up with the regulation that you have to today read for yourself, the legislative stuff. Imagine having an agent that takes care of that for you and spits out an answer within minutes. Not, you know, I'm up here at midnight trying to read this piece of legislation or this new regulation that's coming up next month. You've literally got an agent that takes care of it for you and gives you the best solution you could possibly hope for. Prospecting, planning, all of that can be unbelievably enhanced through things like AI.
Are you friends with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, or are you rivals?
No, we're friends. We're
really?
Friends. You know,
how good?
Not great.
Not great.
Not great friends, but you know, if you look at where we are, one thing is clear to me, and I dare say they feel the same way. In order for us to get it right going forward, the intersection between politics and policy and the commercial and economic interest of this nation, we have to work at that intersection. And I'm very enthused that I see especially newcomers to the legislative and in Congress, in that space, that are actually calling out business leaders and saying, we want to hear your perspective. Business should have a seat at the table. Now, we shouldn't be in the driver's seat, but it makes a lot of sense to have us at the table, and particularly the American small business community. As you know, we create nearly 70% of the new jobs in this nation. And oftentimes legislation, when it comes particularly from this town, and I always say, in today's Washington, if you don't have a voice, you don't get a choice. You get what you get. That doesn't make sense. That's back-asswards. The people creating most of the jobs should at least have a voice in the dialogue. And so that's where I work, and I am very enthused when I see people like Ruben Gallego, when I see Sheldon White, and people like that actually want to hear from us. Because oftentimes the unintended consequences, the downstream effect, things that look like they are going to benefit downstream on Main Street are actually quite detrimental. And why not just get us in at the beginning of the process and hear from us from the very beginning, so the piece of legislation or the regulation comes out?
I want to let our audience in on it's not a secret. I mean, you kind of did it, but I just don't know why. I know pretty much every Hispanic Fortune 100 CEO because of Javier, because he would have this annual conference, and he would have this big CEO panel, and he'd have him doing exotic places in Albuquerque, you know, Taos, New Mexico, or whatever, and he'd invite me out to go do it, and I would moderate it. Did anybody ever tell you, hey, Steve's not a Hispanic?
Listen, brother, you're part of the family, whether you like it or not. You're in. And to your credit, you always came on your dime, and you always spent with our community. You are a hero, man. You really are.
I just want to thank. Don't leave it. Will you stay for a few minutes, because I'm going to fix your relationship with the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, Javier, move right over here. Javier, let me welcome to the stage my very good friend Neil Bradley, who's the Executive Vice President, Chief Policy Officer, Head of Strategic Advocacy at the U.S. Chamber. He's also President of the Board, Permanent Secretary of the Center for National. No, hey Javier, get over here. So what are you doing? You guys be on for a few minutes.
I'm about to encourage people to join you.
No, he's going to get his alone time, but I just want you guys to know each other better. He said, we got a relationship with Chamber, but it could be better. This is a good start, you know?
No.
Have you ever met before other than last night? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to help,
No, listen, the resources that the Chamber brings.
This is the therapist couch.
And their willingness to work downstream and hear from communities like mine. It's second to none. And let's face it, their resources are astronomical compared to ours. So a lot of times what we come up with is informed by, the data, the information, and the sharing that we get from guys like.
I know we're going to jump in on something, but this is really important.
Yeah.
The way we develop policy, the way we develop advocacy is informed by the input that we get from allies like Javier, because he has networks and inroads into communities that we don't always hear from.
Right.
We have some of that. We have resources. We have resources and communities that you all don't do. But that's what makes the business association community, I dare say the Chamber community, so strong, is that we have the ability to leverage the tremendous capabilities that each of us have.
Yeah, I'll leave you to your
We
date
should all
now.
do a joint dinner one day, and no ties though. Okay, so no tie. We'll have a joint dinner.
Well, then it's not a Chamber dinner.
Give a big round of applause, Javier Palomarez.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much,
Thanks, my friend.
Javier. Thank
God bless, buddy.
Thank you very much.